Hello and welcome to MPA's webinar, Road to Recovery, Regaining Parkers and Volume. My name is Eamon Connor, MPA's Director of Professional Development. This presentation is being recorded and will be available for playback following the conclusion of the program. And now let's introduce our moderator for today. Andrew Sachs is President of Gateway Parking Services, an innovator, serial entrepreneur, and consultant to the industry. Andrew, you're very welcome to the webinar program.
Welcome to the Road to Recovery Fireside Chat, Fight, Argument, and Agreement, where we are going to dig through the hype and discuss what we are seeing now in parking. The past 2 years have been a roller coaster in our industry, and when you open your eye, step back and survey where we have been, you will see that progress has been anything but stagnant. In a word, parking has gone digital. My name is Andrew Sachs. I'm an asset owner, consultant, and all-around troublemaker. Joining me today are two of the smartest people in parking, Wen Tseng, founder of and CEO of Smarking, and Todd Tucker, Senior Vice President of Market Development, General Counsel at ParkWiz. Flash. Oh, wait, see, things are changing. Okay. Gentlemen, welcome. I wanted to get right into it. We have limited time. We're going to start with a bit of a discussion and a little bit of maybe argument, as I've indicated. But before we go forward, I think it's important to look back. So I'm going to ask you both, what is the biggest mistake you have made in parking? Wen, you want to jump on that?
Sure. So to be honest, looking back years ago, when I walked myself into the industry, I thought, well, this is going to be easy. Just get all the data together and boom, we're digital. That was not the case. This is my 7th, 8th year in parking, and technology adoption is hard. So I'd say the mistake I made was thought it was easy, just build the technology and then everything would solve. Not the case. Technology adoption is the key, and that takes partnership, that takes patience, that takes turning technology into value, and that takes collaboration. And I think the world is at a much better place today than before the pandemic for us to make it happen a lot faster.
Great. And Todd, how about you?
Yeah, I've got a few years under my belt in the parking industry, and then a few more in the parking tech side. So I would probably say underestimating how complicated it is to take really good ideas and translate them into operationalized solutions in the field. Really smart developers and people that I work with that are just geniuses. We start with big ideas and then you have to bring it in for a landing, and knowing that every single parking lot and parking garage on earth is very different than the one next door to it. And so finding solutions that are flexible and adaptable across those nuances, but still, serves a bigger platform. That's been one of our challenges. I think just growing, but I feel like to the point, Flash and Arrive, we're way ahead of the curve in terms of having a lot of mileage under our belt to go through those different iterations and figure out those little nuances.
Okay, great. And so, I think you've already answered it a little bit, but when you look forward, how do you take that learning to, take a big idea, right, and say, okay, how do we make this work?
Well, in my head, I'd say to flip it around, essentially, instead of start with the technology, I think people should think about start with the client, start with the business, start with the problem. So that has been the approach we've taken in the most recent years. And that's how, step by step, through collaboration with good people here, with you, Andrew, and Todd, and many other partners out there, we were able to not only just put the data together, but enable dynamic pricing, because at the end of the day, money matters. And also when it comes to making the digital parking available, meet the consumers where they are, having flexible options, all the new developments on the market, we start with what the people need, not just, okay, I have a piece of great technology. That doesn't matter as much as we focus on start with the people and start with the problems.
Todd, do you agree with that?
Yeah, I agree pretty strongly with that one. I think that, going back many years ago when I was a parking garage manager, there was a time when we didn't think a whole lot about the customer. We did all the right things. We try to be kind and courteous to everybody, but there's a real overemphasis and a shift in the marketplace in the last 5 or 10 years to being extremely customer centric, and every question needs to start with, how does this affect the customer at the ground level? And then you back your way into everything else. What's the problem the consumer's feeling? What's the pain point the parking operator's feeling? The people that we serve, we've got to think about the problems and work our way back there and ideate versus what maybe was a top-down business for many years before.
Yeah, and it was, and I think in some quarters still is. I can't stress enough, and I've talked about this before, and I think people get sick of hearing me say it, but parking as a service, PaaS, capital P, capital S, right? We need to begin and think about that and our customers and start there and then work backwards. Because if we don't, we're going to get replaced by, an app or something, right? People are going to find, or quite honestly, a better parking facility. I do really well because my immediate competitors do really bad. It's just that simple. And I think what we're talking about today and what we're going to get into, if you're not thinking about incorporating these things into your parking operation, then you're either on your way out of business and don't know it, or maybe you do know it. And, because the industry has changed. So I think let's jump forward to that. COVID was a great accelerator, a massive period of disruption. And, anyone that just kind of stuck their head in a hole and waited for it to come back and resume parking operations as normal is going to have issues if they're not already. So what's changed? What have you seen, Todd, that's really changed in the marketplace from your point of view?
Yeah, look, and I think that anybody that's been watching has realized the huge shift again, we talk about that consumer, right? I can speak from the perspective of what I've been personally working on the last 6 or 7 years. Is we were working on lots of digital touchless solutions. Obviously, that's the mantra that Arrive had, and now we're part of Flash. But being able to solve and create those solutions was happening for a lot of different reasons. Customer convenience, demands of big platforms that we work with, like the automakers and things like that. Then COVID hits, and suddenly all those reasons became, got on steroids. They became that much more important, and consumers started demanding those things because of the value prop that they provided, which is I don't have to touch anything, I don't have to come in contact with folks. That super accelerated the need for digital solutions, whether it's reservations or scanning a QR code or downloading an app to use from now on. It's really been a huge shift. And so before COVID, we had a fair amount of work on our plate. After COVID, the inbound is overwhelming. It's completely overwhelming. I can't we can't get enough hands on the steering wheel to handle it all, right, because there's so much inbound demand. So I think that's been a big shift for that I've seen, is just the need for flexible solutions that allow people to transact in a different world.
Okay, so Glenn, hold that thought, because I know you have some good ones. But Todd, I want to call you out on a buzzword that's a knee jerk for me, which is touchless. Sure. Right? And a lot of things went touchless, and it became 6 times harder versus seamless. Right? Seamless is pulling out your QR code or not even, and just having your phone or whatever it may be, getting you into and out of that garage as seamlessly as possible is actually, I argue and insist upon, more important than touchless, which can be like, okay, I don't want to touch it, but do these 6 things on your cell phone while someone's honking at you behind, line. That, could be, touchless versus seamless. So how has Arrive dealt with seamless versus touchless? Because I use you and I think you are pretty seamless, right?
Yeah, look, it comes back to the comment that we started the call with, right? Like we have really great solutions and ideas, but ultimately they have to be turned on and solutioned for each garage. And so different environments create different opportunities. I would be lying if I said every single place we've deployed is working perfectly, because there's different parking equipment configurations. We work with everybody, but some have systems that are more flexible and more malleable than others. And so having the right architecture, the right operational tempo, the right operational flow, the right operational setup and then we've got to kind of force ourselves in there. That it's a good point. Touchless kind of gets intermingled with frictionless, touchless, contactless. Like it's all kind of one big catchphrase, right? But technology can create, there's an iteration process often. You put in solutions and then you have to tweak as you go. And so I would say that, being cognizant of the fact that the devil's in the details when you're setting up a solution somewhere is really the cautionary tale. So not that anyone should, not try solutions, just you got to really think through the details. So bringing that plane in for a landing, like I said, is really the key part. There's really great ideas, lots of companies, Flash and others, that have a lot of great solutions, but you really have to operationalize it to make sure you've covered all your bases. And that's going to come down to partnership between good asset owners like you, Andrew, good partners like Wen, good parking operators, and folks on the ground level that work and iterate. Sometimes it takes a couple of revolutions to really get it smooth.
Oh, absolutely. It always takes a couple revolutions to get it smooth, and we have to be willing to adapt. Too many people go, I got the solution, great, plug it in, and then they're gone, and you're not paying attention, and your customer sitting there at the gate pushing the button, going, "Hey, I need help."
Yeah.
Okay, Wen, your turn.
Set it, forget it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Exactly. Really amazing comments, gents. So to the original question, Andrew, you asked in terms of what changed, observation-wise. Number one, I couldn't agree more with what Todd said, that before the pandemic, a lot of the folks are more in the boat of, okay, business good, we don't need to do anything, let's just keep going, we can get by. But today, many people are scratching their heads trying to figure out, okay, what are technologies on the market? What can we do? What can we adopt? So I think the macro environment from technology adoption perspective is a lot better. So that is happening. But we'll have to ask the question, why? Why is this happening? So to that, I think we actually prepared some of the data to look at. I think at the end of the day, it comes back to what we talked about. It comes down to the business or the people's needs. The demand pattern has shifted dramatically. So Andrew, if you wouldn't mind bringing up the stats we prepared together for nationwide, if we could take a look at the total volume recovery and the breakdown of monthly versus transient, that'd be really helpful. So this is 2020. We're all pretty familiar with it. I think, yeah. If we take a look at 2021, what we're and Andrew, if you wouldn't mind, show us 2021, the next one. I think what we're looking at is from a total volume standpoint. Back in July, we were almost 70% recovered, and then obviously toward December, January, Omicron happened. As of today, as of the end of March 2022, we're at about 72% recovered. So I'd say from a volume standpoint, we are at a much better place compared to March 2021, and the world is coming back nicely. So, but then if we break it down, actually, the truth is in the details. What is happening right now, Andrew, if you wouldn't mind, show us this. Clearly, if we break down by month, the total volume by monthly and transient, throughout the entire last 15 months, the monthly recovery has always been falling behind the transient recovery. So I'd say it's possible that we're looking at two factors. One, with the workforce return, the monthly parkers, this is total volume transactions, right? So people are not coming back every day. They're in the office a few days a week and so on. On the flip side, for the folks who are coming back, we saw more than 50% of monthly parkers essentially cancel their passes back in 2020 and so on. So when they come back, a lot of them started pulling tickets because they didn't have better options. So our observation here is the world is coming back. Total volume is in a much better shape, but we need to pay attention to what people want. To this, our read is, to a certain extent, people wanted to use the facilities. They wanted to use it with in and out privileges and so on, but they do need flexibility. So that's one observation. What changed? And we attribute the, we can take a look at Chicago's data later on as an example, but the number one trend we saw is the recovery of transient monthly is not at the same pace. People are coming back.
But Wen, let me interrupt you, because here's what I'm seeing on a very granular level with selling parking in Baltimore. I see people going to football games, baseball games. I mean, today I have a baseball game. We're sold out, and they're cheering, they're crawling all over each other, spilling beer, everything else. And then they wake up in the morning and go, oh, yeah, no, I can't go to work. It's not safe, right? And what they're really saying is, it's freaking awesome working from home. you know, all
Yeah.
the hassles of traffic and the parking, right? You know, the number one hassle that people will reference is parking, and that's on us, right?
Yeah.
You know, it
Yeah.
gets to what we said earlier.
Oh.
And so, you know, I joke about it, but there's some truth there. And then, you know, any excuse not to come back into the office.
Right. That's the world
And
we're
some
living
of
in.
it,
Yeah. We just need to
some of
work
it
with
we can't control, and
Yeah.
some of it we can. You know, we
Yeah.
can offer, and we'll get into this later, but we can offer some services. Okay.
Right.
So,
Yeah. And to that comment, Andrew, and to Todd's point earlier, that when it comes to touchless, seamless, when these folks they decided to actually come in the second day, they don't want to pull a ticket. They wanted to drive up at the gate. Somehow the gate opens, and then they just go in and then grab lunch, go out at the noontime, and come back and feel like a monthly parker, but they don't want to pay that full $400, $500 is kind of today's expectation. And they wanted to get everything done in their phone. So this is, if we go to the next one, we'll take a look at another mega trend that we saw. This is through our partnership between Smarking and Flash Arrive. We looked at all the online transactions all the way from January 2021 to March 2022 compared to 2019, same month. And what we're seeing here is basically, as of June 2021, online transactions are beating 2019 already. Yeah, sure, December and January, it went down a little bit because Omicron and whatnot, but immediately, March, we're beating 2019. March 2022 is beating 2019 in terms of online transactions. What this is telling us is basically people wanted to see their parking options online. They wanted to do things on their phone. There's a mega shift, and we need to work with that. We need to work backwards, as Todd put it, that this is what people want. To your point, Andrew, that, you know, some of the folks wanted the flexibility. Most of the people wanted the things done on their phone. We need to work with this and work backwards to see what technologies can be provided to enable this sort of experience.
Right. And I want to point out here that this is not people, you know, reacting to COVID. This is what people wanted anyway. And it goes to the idea of seamless, right? Everyone talks about hacking this, hacking that, and kind of the life to make things as seamless as possible. And we need to hack parking, as it were, to make it as seamless as possible, because, you know, this is I mean, you could take this, you could have pulled this right from my garage, right? This is exactly what, you know, I'm seeing as well.
100%.
You know, and it's about people want seamless. And you know what? Arrive is seamless. Spy Hero is seamless. You know, all these different options are seamless. I don't want to leave anybody out, and I apologize for not mentioning all the options. Okay, sorry, Wen.
I just wanted that. Sorry, Wen. Go ahead.
Please go ahead.
Jump in.
No, I was just gonna add. It's really good discussion. I think Andrew, you make really good comments that, you know, look, people are always torn between the immediate choice and the next best alternative, right? And what's happened is that the next best alternative after COVID is just stay home and work from home, right? But I think there's also the flip side of that balance equation is there's a lot of latent demand. There's a lot of people, and I'm in that category. I'm just sick of being at home. I find myself going out and doing a lot more things than I did before COVID, just for no reason at all than just to get out of the house. And so I think that's you see a lot of people at a ball game, but they don't necessarily want to go to the office. But we're seeing trends, I think, too, where you know, we've got some really great partnerships with some big employment groups, and you know, there's a lot of employers out there that are mandating at least some return to the office, right? At least a few days a week. Some are full back to the office. So I think we're in kind of an inflection point, right, where that we want to be better than the next best alternative, right? You know, so the parking infrastructure and the access points, we've got to make it as clean and as simple and as easy as possible, so that people will opt to come in more versus stay home less. Because, you know, you have one bad experience and suddenly you don't come back to the office for 2 weeks. So it's incumbent upon us in the industry to drive the ability to have better choices. And then I think, you know, naturally the natural sorting mechanisms of consumers will happen. And I think it's also providing optionality, right? So if I want to drive but I'm only going in 2 days a week, like having a flexible monthly plan, so I don't have to buy a 5-day-a-week monthly, you know, those are adaptations that we're all going to have to grow into and give more and more options to consumers that they can choose from, and more ways to pay, more and more ways to consume. See, that's the way that we come out ahead after this curve.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can jump in and say, look, I was selling monthly parking at what, $200 a month pre-COVID, and now I can sell $150 for a Flex Pass, right? That's like half a month, 12 days, 13 days, whatever it may be. And in time, I'm confident I'm going to earn more money because that office can now, instead of having 100 people in that square footage, whatever they have, they can get 125, 150 people in that square footage. And if I can sell that 150 people, $150 monthly parking more than 100 people at at $200 monthly parking, I'm coming out ahead. It's going to take time for that excess inventory to fill out. It's opportunity. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, it's not necessarily a discounting exercise. Like I think a lot of people's minds that run garages go to the notion that it's a discounting exercise. No, look, anything you buy in life, when you buy more quantity, you usually get a better rate, right? But when you buy less quantity, you pay less, but overall on a unit economics basis, you're going to pay more. So if you play your cards right, you manage your garage and do things like dynamically price your spaces and do much more, different iterations, you're actually going to see that one key metric that all garage owners, I think you look at it a lot too, Andrew, is revenue per space. That's really what you want. Revenue per space or revenue per ticket should go up and certainly not go backwards, at least stay the same.
Right. Yeah. And, Wen, I'm going to speak to your praises, here, because as far as I know, you're the one that really brought dynamic pricing to parking. And you came to me early on. And of course, I'm like, yeah, what the hell? Let's try it. Right. And the first day we turned it on, I think we called you up and said, look, we had two people come in, one who paid, pulled a ticket monthly, former monthly, pulled a ticket. And then he talked in the elevator to a buddy who said, oh, yeah, I got this great deal, and then that person called us up and said, hey, Joe got this great deal. Can you give that to me? And I'm like, great. You're just, you're cannibalizing my audience. And he said, just wait. Let's look at the numbers. And then of the month, we looked at the numbers, and you were able to demonstrate to me that we're not cannibalizing the audience. And so for me, what's critical, I think dynamic pricing is brilliant. To be honest, I use your version one with Flash, and I use Spot Heroes as well in the same garage. And what I see is what I'm targeting is I have the value customer and I have the premium customer. Premium customer is going to come, pull a ticket, pay whatever that day rate is, and not think about it. It's close to where they want to go. Awesome. And then there's the value customer who's going and looking for a deal. And if it's a slow day, and my competitors don't lower their rates, and I do, and I get $5, I got someone that I wouldn't have otherwise got. And they know they got a deal, so they're going to come back, and maybe they'll be a value customer next time. So to me, it's like, yes, and you've got to be doing this. If you're not doing it, I'm going to eat your lunch. And thank you, Wen and Todd, for giving me the tools to eat someone else's lunch, right? Right. So that's my feeling.
100%, Andrew and Todd. A lot of times we get lost in the single data points. That's the story you told us, the guy in the elevator saying, I'm getting a good deal. And then but at the end of the day, today we have opportunities and ability to look at things statistically across the board, holistically. All of a sudden we find that, hey, if majority of my inventory or a lot of my inventory is really empty at this time, might as well really take advantage of it and turn it into something. And the same technologies that companies like Uber used for dynamic pricing. I mean, I was just watching the TV show Super Pumped. They were talking about how they deployed dynamic pricing. Yeah, it was an amazing show. But the reality is the world has come to this place that, taxi, rideshare could use it. Parking could use it as well. If what consumers want, which is the reality we're working with, is, online booking on their phone, we got to provide that to them. But in return, we can take advantage of technologies like dynamic pricing, just like how Uber did it and many other companies did it, to really turn this into something, right? Instead of saying, no online and no, that is where, as you said, Andrew, you're going to be left behind in the dust. But if we really put our mind together, looking at the data, online is beating transient monthly recovery. It's clear what consumers want. Sure, let's give them the options, but that does not mean we make more money. That means we make more, make less money. That means we make more money. by leveraging technologies, the latest, right? Give them that option, dynamic pricing, flexible options to really turn it around. Take advantage of the new trend is kind of how we would, yeah.
Got it. So Wen, do you want me to go back to sharing the screen, or?
So I would hope, Todd, and I answered your question in terms of what were the changes that we've seen. So yeah, if you have, So
Keep
I
us
say,
going.
I guess one thing maybe we could all talk a little bit more is clearly in the parking world, consumers wanted their parking on their phone, online, and they're more catered to the dynamic pricing world. But we can also look at the holistic mobility world a little bit, right? So if we take a look at rideshare's data, I do apologize that we should have prepared more of the Q4 data as well. Uber just released it, but if we just look at last year, my memory goes back in 2019. Companies like Uber, they were doubling year by year in terms of their total revenue or total volume. But right now here, the dark green shows their Uber rates. As of the end of last Q3, they were only 75% recovered. So what that tells me is the trend of people taking ride shares, if we put things in the holistic mobility kind of landscape, it is changing as well, right? Back to your original question, Andrew, that more people wanted, a lot of people bought cars, used cars, and the car price went up. On the flip side, we were pretty, I'd say, hammered by the rideshare, at least conceptually before pandemic. Now, I mean, the world is turning, at least for the time being. People are considering owning cars. Doesn't matter if it's EV, just gasoline cars. That is the case. And on the other hand, when it comes to public transportation, also we saw a drop in terms of the volume. We have a set of data there, Andrew. Feel free to share, but yeah, no problem. The high level thinking there is clearly this is basically on the right hand side, MBTA in Boston, their ridership as of last Q3, they were at about 50% recovered, and the officials from MBTA basically said it's going to take probably until the end of 2023 to see kind of the meaningful recovery and whatnot. So public transportation, rideshare, they're trying. We all hope the world comes back, but clearly there is a shift when it comes to people driving cars and parked cars as well. So all of these factors are in play is basically what we're seeing, and also with the hybrid work mode, everything. So our kind of a translation is it is important to work with, as parking service providers, work with consumers' needs. They want things on their phone. They want a flexible schedule. They want to drive their own cars, make it easier for them to pay, for them to get in, get out. And how to do that? Leverage the latest technologies, which I know, Andrew, you included as one part of our topic today. What do we want to talk about? Okay, so we talk about the problem, the opportunities there. Yeah, workforce is obviously shifting. What are technologies we should be thinking about to cater to those needs?
Yeah, so look, this is where it's really important. I am personally always looking for the latest and the greatest technologies. Now, we have to be careful. We can't just rush right in. We shouldn't too much. I mean, when you well know, my team, you've seen them on webinars, roll their eyes when I'm like, hey, can we, and they're like, oh God, we got to make this work, right? And but there's a reason for that, right? So actually, when I know you're working on some new technologies that you're testing that we're working on together, and I think it's worth you speaking about that a little bit.
Yeah.
And what that is,
Yeah, happy to. And I think I'm going to ask for Todd for a story out of this, and we'll probably talk about dynamic pricing first. So, Andrew, feel free to use the slides, but we don't have to. So, but yeah, so
if you slide, I'm happy to show a slide.
If you wouldn't mind, bring out the dynamic pricing page. So I think this was back in 2019 when we just got started. Basically, at the time, as I mentioned earlier to you guys, that we've learned the hard lesson that, hey, building technologies is one thing, enable technology adoption is another, because by having the data at one place, it does benefit a lot of people, but it still doesn't do that part to turn data immediately into money. So we're like, okay, how do we do this? Basically, the thought is, let's automate that process. That's how the dynamic pricing engine came out. So conceptually, everybody understands that, yeah, sure, dynamic pricing, we've heard about it, we've seen it in the travel industries. How do you make it happen in parking? I think the key thing here, back to your earlier question, Andrew, you can't just jump right in. How do you get started? What is the right way to adopt technology? And this is how we essentially did it together through our partnership with, at the time, right now, Flash team and Todd and his team. So basically, we said, well, anything you wanted to see it happen, you understand where you wanted to land, you got to start with a small scale, start small, right? So I'd say the keywords is start small. And then experiment, right? You got to be willing to take the risk, experiment, and then measure the results. So I'd say those are the three key things, and that's exactly what we did together. So the nature of dynamic pricing by itself is, I'd say, pretty straightforward. But if you
so when some of the things you gave me is, you said, I could do a bottom, right? Which is, don't go below $10 or $5 or
right.
whatever it may be, right?
Yeah.
And that gave me some security. And then at a certain point, I'm like, take it off, right? And then there was another surprise that came back in the data, which is at a certain point, if it's been going for a few months, I said to you, look, I don't ever want to charge people more than the established rate, which is done by hour and day. And you were like, oh, well, that's a problem, because we've been making you more money than the established rate for people that have been booking 2 days, 3 days, or whatever, or 36 hours or whatnot. And I was like, oh. And I had zero complaints, a lot of 5-star reviews. And I was like, okay, maybe, I'm not going to hurt my reputation by getting away with charging more. They're not complaining, and trust me, I'm not complaining, right? So I was like, oh, wow, okay, So go ahead.
I think,
sorry.
that's absolutely the case, Andrew. And to your point, when it comes to at the end of the day, you got to measure the results, which is the key of taking any technology and then turning it into something. So we don't have to talk too much here about the start small and the take risks, the experiment, because we've been doing that. But measuring results, I'd say, at the end of the day, is the key thing there. And to your story, and I know Todd has a story. If you wouldn't mind, Andrew, go to the next one, actually. So
the
this
one
was
after demand price?
Yeah, the one after this one.
Okay, gotcha.
So basically, back to your point, having a controlled environment where there's a floor and ceiling set up, start small, have that kind of experiment environment set up is important. At the end of the day, it comes down to the results, right? I'll ask for Todd chiming in here to share us the story when we initially did experiment at certain locations, and how Todd and his team brought in professors from University of Michigan to measure the results, essentially to tell if is this a fraud or this is real. Go ahead, Todd.
Well, like probably many of the people listening to this webinar and others, like we're all highly skeptical, right? And if we don't have to if we don't have to come outside of our comfort zone, then why bother? So we always think are naturally inquisitive and try to disprove things. So when we first got approached by Smarking, we did everything in our power to see if we could poke holes in this theorem and break the solution. And look, we've been working together for about 4 or 5 years now, and so obviously we weren't able to break it. We actually found in the bulk majority of the cases there was upside to significant upside, and obviously others followed suit. Spot Hero released their dynamic pricing engine. Others have done it too. But Smarking was kind of the first at the table to really get the solution across the finish line, and so we were happy to be there alongside of them. We've seen dramatic changes in a lot of locations, and we did that on a foundation of trying to figure out how to break it first with our own internal really smart people and external smart people. Like, we tried to figure out what are the holes here. Look, I think it just comes some of the apprehension I think that others may go through when they're thinking about deploying these types of things come down to fear of losing control of rate. As an asset owner, a parking management company, they don't want to lose control of rate. So when you start saying variable pricing, that can freak people out, and not just on a practical level, like I'm not in control of the value of my space anymore, but just reconciliation things, like how do I reconcile that as an operator? If I sell this many spaces at this rate and this many spaces at this rate in the same time period, how do my accounting people know if I got if I was defrauded or not? Or if I've got a silent partner at the garage or something like that in the form of an attendant giving discounts. Like, those are questions that are smart questions to ask. But when you really do your homework, really peel back all the layers, and you really try to A/B test this, it's hard to say that it doesn't work most of the time.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I think that's very well said.
Yeah. To Todd's point, at the end of the day, you gotta try breaking it, and essentially that is the vetting process, right? You can't just say, okay, here's technology, we bought the technology, that's it. Nope, you gotta get to the bottom of it, understand how it works. Really, at the end of the day, what's the result? And at the end of the day, then you get over the hump of technology adoption, and then roll it to the rest of your portfolio. Is kind of how we saw a lot of people succeeded by taking new technologies, measure results, and then land and expand.
But also, this is not new technology, right? And so when I brought this to one of my clients, Marriott Sheraton Hotel, and I say I want to turn on dynamic pricing, they were like, great. Why? Because they've been doing it in the hotel business for years. They've been doing it for 20 years now, right?
Yeah.
And they know it works. They didn't need me to show them the data. They're like, yeah, go for it, right? It was no questions because to them, they already know. Right. And airlines, right? I still get in the plane and go, did I get a better deal than you? Right. And in my head, of course, I think I do, even though I probably didn't. Right. And this is not new to the world. Right. And people have been making a lot of money off of this for a long time.
Vacation packages. I mean, you could just go on and on and on. Right. And unfortunately, the parking industry still suffers from, Luddite syndrome. Sometimes we have to watch it happen in 10 other industries before we really adopt it ourselves. And you find the folks that have been exposed to other industries, other verticals, and every American's been exposed to Uber and rideshare now, surge pricing and things like that. So I think a belief system around the notion that you're going to turn customers away. Obviously you have to manage it. You have to be cautious, but it's difficult to believe that the American public hasn't been, the world's public, I should say, hasn't been conditioned that everybody's going to pay different prices for different things, depending on when you bought it, how you bought it, which channel you bought it through.
Right. Well, and channels, I think that's a key word. And I think we can move on with that word, right? Because we can keep talking about dynamic pricing, but I use multiple channels. I use every channel available to me. So I have, my regular price. Someone can go on ParkWiz, Spot Hero, Way.com, or any of the others and book a ticket right now or parking right now at my regular rates. Or maybe they're going to find dynamic pricing rates. Or maybe they're going to find my event rate. And for different events, I do different things. Apologies to New York fans, but when the Yankees come to Baltimore, my parking rates for the baseball game go up because you know what? I know the New Yorkers are like,
supply and demand.
That's cheap. $25, that's cheap, right? I'm going to find exactly, and I use dynamic pricing in order to discover some pricing I can get away with, right? So I use multiple channels to attract customers. And I think that's critical, right? You shouldn't just be using ParkWiz. I love ParkWiz. You shouldn't just be using Spot Hero or any of the others, right? You need to use all of them. Anyone that's got a presence in your market, you got to pay attention to, because otherwise you're not getting access to their customers, right? A lot of people in parking were like, oh yeah, the aggregators, there was a big fight against them early on when I first started, attending conventions and so on. And I was looking at it going, well, wait a second. They didn't take 15% of my business. What they did is they took the cost of innovating off of my shoulders, right? So Todd, you're doing this. When you're doing this and I get the benefit, right? That's worth the price I pay to you guys, right? Yeah. And so I don't look at it as a loss. I look at it as a gain. And I think there are too many people that do things the way things have been done because that's always worked and don't take, a percentage from me. And someone's got to pay for innovation, right? And so that's where I think you guys, both in your own way, have provided true value.
Yeah.
There's a word called a word called omnichannel sales.
Yes.
Been around for a very long time. We just talked about other industries that we're learning from. Omni-channel, you can find research going back into the 50s using the term omni-channel research. It used to be considered omni-channel if you had a Sears catalog that you sold your stuff in also versus the store Sears, right? And now omni-channel has a much broader effect. It's to sell it anywhere you can, as many places as you can. You don't know where your customers are. You don't know where they emanate from. You don't know what tool they're using, what app they're using, what initial entry source into the top of the funnel. You don't know where they're coming from. So, to the
No, I
extent you
disagree.
can manage,
I know exactly where they're coming from. And, I see it after the fact. I saw
Right.
who came from Spy Hero. I saw who came from ParkWiz. I saw who drove up, right? And so we can learn that, but only if we pay attention.
Yeah.
Because we don't know until we know, I think is really the way of saying that.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. The point I was making is that there's a lot of folks I talk to out there that would say, hey, I can't really take more than 3 channels. I'm already accepting cash and credit card and validations and monthlies, and I just don't have the ability to reconcile 10 more things. I think that is kind of short-sighted, because maybe you don't have your inventory turned on someplace that somebody you'd really like to have park in your property is searching. Like, what an example would be an automaker, right? If you don't have your inventory turned on in General Motors app, right? And we power that, so I bring it up. General Motors interface in vehicles, right? Then would you want to be cut off from General Motors drivers parking? Probably not. I mean, I would have to say, so put your inventory everywhere you can to make it visible, and then just use the right tools. Smarking's a great tool to help aggregate a bunch of aggregation, right? To other tools like Okra, and there's other people out there that can help you use smart tools to put it all together. So that it doesn't have to be the old-fashioned just 10 other things you have to reconcile. There are other tools that can help you kind of manage it in scale.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely.
The good news is folks do have a lot more options when it comes to technology to help them manage the inventory. But the key thing here, I actually remember, Todd, you did your PhD in omni-channel sales. I remember the finding there is the net effect of adding channels is net positive. At the end of the day, the world is moving toward how, travel industries, for example, Marriott.com, they sell hotels, but on their own website, but also on Expedia, bookings.com. Same thing goes with parking. If you don't do that, you get left behind. So that is where the world is moving toward. And the one more channel you have, one more opportunity you have, essentially, is the case. And all technology partners here in the industry is to support you to managing them and make sure that you're getting the most out of it, is how I would say we see it, right? At the end of the day, the travel industry's hundreds of billions of dollars, 60-70% is already digitized. I mean, looking at parking, we know we're $131 billion of industry. MPA did the research last year, hired E&Y, and it's massive. But from a digital perspective, we're in the baby steps right now, right? Less than the single digit percentile. We need to do a lot more, is the case. So absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think there's a critical form of understanding that some people lack. And we need to understand that, 20 years ago, people got in the car, drove, and they found parking place next to wherever they're going.
Right.
And I can tell you from my own stats that 90% of those people effectively start with a Google search. Now, maybe that Google search, and there's parking next to whatever, right? And maybe that Google search takes me to ParkWiz. Maybe that Google search takes me to my website. Maybe that Google search takes me to any of the other different channels that are out there, right? And if I'm not playing in those channels, I'm not getting those people, right? So we have to understand, like, the world has changed. People are using and they do it in their car, right? They should do it before they leave, but look at the stats. And, again, every month the numbers go up, and, I think 70% of people that find my facilities find them online. And I've looked at the heat maps, and they're finding them at the entrance point to the city, right? Which means that they got off the freeway, they hit the first light, and like, oh, right, parking. I should think about that now. And you have 20 seconds to engage them before that light changes. And if you do it right, you can find them, give them a price, and have them hit pay, right? And then take me to wherever I just paid, right? And that's not only possible, it's what's happening. And if you're not doing that, you're losing out.
100%.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay.
I know we're short on time. Do we have any final questions or comments?
There is a
Anybody
recommendation
else?
page. I wanted to jump over there, but yeah, please go ahead, Todd and Andrew. Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Andrew.
Todd, yeah, you go first. I'm just kind of pulling up the slides that we have. We have this whole presentation that will be available after the recording so that you can get it, look at it. You can also always hit any of us up if you have questions or thoughts. So, Todd, what are your final thoughts?
Yeah, my final thoughts would be: look, there's lots of information out there. I think most of the topics we're talking about are probably at least not foreign to folks, people that are trying to decide to try new things, whether it's this or any other piece of technology. Look, there's lots of great companies out there. They'll let you do all kinds of trials. You can do pilots. You can do A/Bs. Just have an open mind. Try new things. I can't tell you how many times we enable something on a trial basis for someone, and no matter how much we sell or tell, it's not until you actually get your arms on the steering wheel and drive it a little bit that the fog will clear, and you'll start to be able to put it together in lots of creative ways, and candidly, maybe even in ways we haven't even thought of. So there's a lot out there to digest and use and try, and just be open-minded.
Yeah, I think that's great. Wen?
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with everything Todd just said. I'd say the world is in a different place. The demand pattern shifted. Consumers wanted things on their phone. They are accustomed to the dynamic pricing mechanics, and when it comes to different options, people want flexibility. Let's work with that reality and leverage technology partners like Todd, like myself, and call up Andrew to ask him how he adopted all the technologies in his harbor parking garage, turn that into technology sandbox, and really measure the results. Measure the results, as Todd said. Test drive a little bit. Don't just stand still. Test drive a little bit, and you will see that there's results, and take advantage of everything that is available on the market. Yeah.
When I disagree, you test drive a lot. Test drive a lot. Keep test driving. And so, I brought up this page on Perfect because it shows my website. It's not pride, but it's something else I wanted to talk about, which is if you see, National Aquarium, I'm now an official parking partner of them. For years, I wasn't, but I was able to put out there a rate that was cheaper than the guys who were official partners. And I was able to publish the other rates and draw attention. And there's the buy now button. It's a little button, but I'm telling you, it's so freaking valuable. And I went to Wen and I said, look, I got a problem. I have 16 different venues near me. I got the aquarium, I got the children's museum, I got 3 concert venues, I've got more and more and more, and restaurants and nail salons and whatever. And everyone we do a deal with. My managers aren't heads down, counting parking spaces only. They are community ambassadors. They go out to every new business, every new customer, every new entity that comes into our neck of the woods and say, hey, we got parking for you. Let's do a deal. How can we help you, right? So in this case, I have a buy now button that takes me to a service that I went to Wen and said, look, you got to create this for me. I need to create a link now, today, for the aquarium, and it's $18. Oh, and someone's having a party at the club next door to us, and we're going to give them a special parking rate for Thursday, the 22nd or whatever, and it's going to be $15 when I need that link. So he's giving me that service, and I suggest you ask him about that. Others, I'm sure, are doing this too, where what I'm doing is selling parking through every freaking channel I can and creating all of the channels that I can so that I can control them. And I think that's a critical next step of where things are going, right? That you want to be able to, in an instant, create a link and give that to a customer and say, great, here's your parking for your special event, for your hotel, for your concert, for your aquarium, for your children's museum, for whatever it may be, and leverage that to your advantage. Okay, and we are out of time, and I want to thank Wen and Todd for joining us today, and we're going to now cut to questions. So thank you both.